There's a book called White Fragility. It's one that's been recommended a lot lately, and I've actually started reading it myself. What I've read has been really good. But an article that I also read recently about the book said that the book said about the book of how it's a book written from the perspective of a white woman about whites, which is great. But the critique comes that it lacks scholarship and insight from the Black perspective. The author who wrote this critique said that the author, she quoted a book, a novel from 1912 by an author named James Weldon Johnson. And the character in his book says that the colored people of this country know and understand the white people better than the white people know and understand themselves. And so that was the thing that the author was saying about white fragility, was that it's great, but it's missing that perspective, that the Black community knows things about the white community that the white community doesn't even realize about themselves. And I thought that was fascinating and very powerful. And so considering that, what does the white church not realize, not only about the last 2 weeks, but about themselves in light of the last 2 weeks?
The elder grabbed that one.
Well, Bobby, you already dipped your toe in these waters, in that it's important to remember that Ernest and I and people like us and those who might be whites but are very closely connected in their family members to somebody else that's African American, well, slightly differently. This is something we think about and live constantly. It can't go away. I didn't just start thinking about my son possibly having a run-in or me having a run-in with somebody. I think about a run-in when I'm just driving. George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery have only heightened what has gone on and made me say I need to drive even slower. I need to be more deliberate in stopping at a stop sign and making sure my signal is on and I pause before I make my right-hand turns. They've only made me much more aware, but I'm already thinking when I'm out driving, Lord, please today, I don't want an incident with any officer while I'm driving. I don't want to be mistaken for anybody or seem suspicious. Please, Lord, today, would you watch over my sons? Don't let them be with the wrong group and be wrongly handled by police or other authority. And we just live in this. And again, I don't live in it as much as some others live in it daily, simply because I have distance from Brookfield. Pam and I were talking with an older friend who lives on the South Side, and she was just checking on us about a week ago to see how we were doing. And she said, how you're doing with, having groceries and the goods you need in your house. Are you okay when you're going out to the store? And Pam and I said, go out to the store. We're not doing that. It's too high risk. We're just using Instacart for everything. They're dropping it on our porch, and we're going out with gloves and masks, picking it up, washing everything when we get in the house, etc. And she paused, and then she scoffed and said, Instacart, huh? She said, Instacart doesn't work over here where I live. I have to go to the store and risk getting COVID. And I just, wow. I mean, it's something we're not even thinking about over here, because Instacart gets here within 2 hours of me making an order. I don't have to go anywhere. So I say that also to say, and in her community, she may even more acutely be experiencing the concern that Pam and I also have daily, that is just absent from the feelings and experience of many of our brothers and sisters of the majority hue in America. And that takes stress away. You don't have the same source of stresses. Even the way you're praying is differently. What we're expecting when we come to church on a Sunday to hear, is my pastor going to say anything about this to let me know he's concerned about things that affect me, that although they might not be affecting someone else, on and on and on and all. So just be aware that this is something that we're living, breathing, sleeping, eating
And these
every day because of the
insecurities,
history of our country. Yeah,
they predate COVID. These insecurities,
yeah.
food insecurities, inability to go out, the COVID hitting our population with a far greater hammer than the majority population. 100 people die of COVID, 80% are of color. You speak
No,
to
you're right.
the plight of inner city, and it's even more acute on the west side and West Garfield. It's even more. And we have a food pantry at our church, and we've had to shutter that. Why? Not because we don't care about the community. The pantry had to shut down because the workers in my church are 60 and up and with comorbidity. And
Yeah.
we have felt that and wanted to be a part, but we know we can't be a part because those at work are high risk.
They're
So
all high risk.
we have had to figure that out, and we have had to make some hard choices. What I want the church to know, and how this author rightly critiques that African Americans know white people better than they know themselves. It is the reality that the idea of whiteness, it's an unloaded, it is a non-loaded term, a term that doesn't necessarily need to shut conversations down, is a second skin, to quote Willie Jennings. It is the reality that we all live in. It is the status quo. And it isn't about pigmentation. This is not about a person's skin color. It's an aesthetic that says that this is right and that is not so right. It says that this is reality, and your reality, it doesn't matter as much.
Mm.
And it's an incredibly exhausting amount
Yes,
of energy we have to put in
yes.
order to perform at a certain thing. So what is it that white people don't know that they need to know, is that people of color around the world, and in many places where the dominant culture dictates, is that it's exhausting to try to live into the expectations. You hear the mantra, well, why didn't they just comply? Everything would just be fine if they got pulled over. You just comply. It's because there's a history of maltreatment every time the lights come on and the blood pressure rises. You would want to comply. If you've been historically all the time subjected to violence and danger and trauma, then you're going to begin to change the way in which you respond. And so it's not about compliance, but that's a vestige of whiteness, is this sense of, I have a second skin that I'm living into, that I have to wear every day, and it wreaks havoc upon my own existence and being, in many ways. Go ahead.
And let me add to that, Ernest. I had a friend, African American, who's a pastor back east where I'm from, and he just put a simple statement on Instagram and said, if any of you mothers, or asked if any of you mothers came upon your son laying on the ground with someone's knee on his neck and your son was screaming or saying, I can't breathe, how would you react to that? You would go ballistic. Now, let's see, you've seen not one of your sons, but many of your sons and daughters have the knee on their neck, metaphorically. And you
Yeah.
keep experiencing this no matter how many times you are crying out. What do you expect to happen in society? And how do you think that mom feels
Yeah.
having that neck
Mm.
with a knee on it again and again, with her children again and again? Just understand that's a weight that we are carrying because of what has happened in the country.
And that weight is, and we're expanding this not just to policing, rightly so, which is a problem, but this reaches into, that's one slice of the pie. You've got other pieces of that pie that there's a knee upon them, that the oxygen is being cut off from, that limited access. Let's use the term and expand it about limited access. What is the metaphor? What is, I'm thinking about this from a perspective of, like, the choking and asphyxiation is a choking in our society. This choking sense of, like, I can't get ahead. I can't move out of a neighborhood that is plagued by violence because of, not because Black people are inherently more sinful than the next person, And no, we don't have a stake on sin. It's not our thing. You know, everybody is extraordinarily sinful. It's that we're imploding because we don't have access outside of these confines.
Yes.
And that's asphyxiating. It is choking. Policing is a problem. Yep.
But there's so much
Redoing the
more.
system, but it is one slice of a pie. And this moment is seeming to, this is the protest. These are the marches. Protesting is fine. You find in scripture, everybody protested in order to bring about change. To speak truth to empire, Paul went up against empire, stood before Felix and told him, you know, I don't want to claim my rights, but I must preach the gospel. I have to do it, or I can't do anything else. And so I think that's what we have to do, is we have to raise our voice and we have to champion it.